Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a time when gods walked among humans, kings claimed divine blood, and entire kingdoms were built on stories that blurred the line between truth and legend. These stories shaped how people lived, fought, worshipped, and ruled. But here's the question no one asks enough. How much of it was real, and how much was carefully crafted myth? Today, you're about to uncover the truth behind ancient gods, kings, and kingdoms, and the reality is far more powerful than the legends themselves. In the ancient world, myths were not just stories told for entertainment. They were tools of survival, control, and identity. When people didn't understand natural disasters, disease, or death, gods became the explanation. Thunder meant divine anger. Victory meant divine favor. Defeat meant punishment. Rulers quickly realized the power of belief. If people believed the gods had chosen you, they would follow you without question. Take ancient Mesopotamia, often called the cradle of civilization. Its kings didn't just rule. They stood between humanity and the gods. They claimed to receive laws directly from divine beings. The famous Code of Hammurabi wasn't presented as human law, but as justice handed down by the gods themselves. This wasn't coincidence. It turned obedience into a religious duty, not just a political one. In ancient Egypt, mythology reached extraordinary levels of sophistication. Pharaohs weren't simply kings, they were living gods, manifestations of Horus. This belief created an unbreakable system of power. Questioning the ruler meant questioning the gods. The grand temples, massive pyramids, and elaborate rituals weren't just religious symbols, they were statements of authority carved into stone. Yet behind the divine image stood human rulers dealing with famine, rebellion, and fear like everyone else. Greek mythology offers another layer of complexity. The gods of Olympus were powerful, but deeply flawed. They lied, cheated, fought, and envied one another. These stories weren't mistakes. They reflected human nature and taught lessons about balance, arrogance, and consequence. Greek kings often claimed descent from gods, using divine ancestry to legitimize their rule. But unlike Egypt, Greek society slowly began to separate myth from governance, planting early seeds of rational thought. Rome took this separation even further, though not completely. Roman emperors encouraged worship of traditional gods but also allowed their own deification after death. Julius Caesar's transformation into a divine figure strengthened his heir Augustus, who used religious symbolism to unify the empire. Myth and reality blended seamlessly into propaganda, a strategy still used in different forms today. Nowhere was the myth versus reality tension more visible than in ancient China. The mandate of heaven wasn't about gods living among humans, but about moral authority. A ruler governed not because he was divine, but because heaven approved. Natural disasters or rebellion signaled that approval had been withdrawn. This belief allowed kings to fall without completely destroying the system itself. Myth here acted as a regulator of power rather than an absolute crown. In ancient India, gods and kings existed in layered realities. Epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana combined historical events with divine intervention. Kings were human, but their actions were guided by cosmic law. These stories weren't meant to be precise records. They were moral frameworks, explaining duty, sacrifice, and destiny. The reality behind them lies in how deeply they shaped culture and governance for thousands of years. Across the Americas, civilizations like the Maya and the Inca also blended mythology with kingship. Rulers were seen as chosen by gods, sometimes even as descendants of the sun. Human sacrifice wasn't random cruelty, it was believed to maintain cosmic balance. When we judge these practices today, we often forget the reality they lived in, a world where survival depended on maintaining harmony with unseen forces. What makes ancient myths so fascinating isn't whether the gods were real in the modern sense. It's the fact that belief itself created reality. Entire economies, armies, and social systems were built on shared stories. Myth was a technology one that organized society long before science and data existed. Yet myths weren't static. As kingdoms expanded, stories changed. Gods absorbed traits from other cultures. Kings rewrote genealogies. Victory reshaped truth. When one empire conquered another, it didn't just steal and it absorbed myths, merged gods, and rewrote history. This is why tracing pure truth is so difficult. Reality was constantly edited. Over time, cracks began to form. Philosophers questioned the gods. Scholars recorded contradictions. Empires grew too large to be held together by belief alone. When Christianity, Islam, and other monotheistic systems emerged, they didn't erase myth, they reorganized it. One God, one truth, one authority. The strategy remained familiar, even as the stories changed. What's often hidden is that ancient people were not naive. Men knew their rulers were human. Priests understood symbolism. Kings understood fear. But belief was still necessary. It gave meaning to suffering. It created unity. It justified power. In many cases, the myth didn't deceive people, it comforted them. Modern archaeology has stripped away some illusions. We now know men divine kings had ordinary graves. Men mythical cities were real places idealized over time. Some gods may have been exaggerated leaders remembered as modern human. But archaeology also confirms something surprising. Myths often preserve truth in symbolic form. Flood stories appear across cultures because floods happen. Warrior gods reflect constant warfare. These gods reflect high mortality. Reality didn't replace myth, it exists within it. Even today, we haven't escaped this pattern. Nations tell stories about their origins. Leaders shape narratives. Symbols inspire loyalty. The ancient world feels distant, but the psychology hasn't changed. We've simply replaced gods with ideologies, flags, and promises of progress. Understanding ancient gods, kings, and kingdoms isn't about debunking them. It's about seeing how belief shapes power and how power shapes truth. The most dangerous myths aren't the ones about lightning gods or sun kings. They're the ones we don't realize we still believe. So the next time you hear a story passed down for centuries, ask yourself, who benefited from this myth? Who gained power, unity, or obedience from it? And what reality lies beneath? History isn't just a record of events. It's a battleground between memory and truth, belief and evidence. The ancient world mastered this battle long before we ever opened a book. If this video made you question what you think you know, if it made ancient history feel alive, relevant, and unsettling, then you already belong here. This channel exists to peel back the layers, to separate myth from reality without destroying the wonder that makes history powerful. There are countless stories still hidden beneath legend, waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe now, because what we've explored today is only the beginning. Ancient gods, kings, then kingdoms, myths vs reality.